I feel like I'm a little incarcerated sitting between you guys.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Three Guys Smoking Cigars and Talking. My name's J.R. McNeely.
I'm John Spittle.
How you doing? And today we've got John Mathis Jr., become a good friend, a very talented guy, keyboard player, songwriter, music publisher. And I'm going to read a little bit about John right now to you here. All right, so John Mathis Jr. is a Dove-nominated songwriter and music publisher. His publishing company has songs that have been placed in television shows such as CBS's Young Sheldon, the Sci-Fi Channel's Resident Alien, as well as national campaigns for major brands like Michelob Ultra. Songs from John's publishing catalog have been recorded by artists such as Grammy winner and Lifetime Achievement Award recipient Charlie Pride, and legendary gospel artists such as the Florida Boys and the Inspirations. Over 100 songs in John's catalog were written by his father, Country Johnny Mathis, who was an American country music singer and songwriter. He was a regular performer on the Louisiana Hayride, and more than 12 Country Music Hall of Fame inductees have recorded his music. That's incredible.
It is incredible.
That's amazing. John is also the author of his father's biography, Sometimes Stardom Ain't Enough. Go buy it, it's on Amazon. Buy lots of copies. Buy some for your friends and family. John has spent more than 20 years working in the music industry across many genres, from Christian music, bluegrass, country music, and also some work in the Spanish language market as well. And a lot of that time has been spent managing an independent record label. John Mathis, welcome to the show.
It's a thrill to be here.
I don't know if it's a thrill, but...
I feel like I'm a little incarcerated sitting between you guys, like I'm on the way to be delivered to jail or something.
So let's talk a little bit about your publishing company. So you've been doing that for many, many years. And like I said in your bio, your dad was a country music star in the 50s and had written a bunch of songs. And how did that all come about with getting sync licenses and TV shows and all that?
Well, songwriting and music publishing is what led me into working in so many areas of the music business. I mean, you know, I grew up in the family band, and my dad had a little publishing company, and eventually, by the time I was in my late teens and early 20s, we were doing a few songs and doing independent record releases, still 45 vinyl, and stuffing those in envelopes, mailing to radio stations, and there was one song I wrote that after the couple quarters passed, I got $99.
Wow.
As a songwriter, and then the family publishing company got $99. It was in the 90s, and so, you know, I thought that was pretty cool.
It's like mailbox money.
I was like, man, you can make some money doing this.
Yeah.
And then it's real hard to make money doing that.
Yes.
But it led into so many other things in the journey with the sync stuff. In music business, it's very funny as I talk to everybody. Sometimes you start out doing one thing and you have no idea what each step will lead to down the road. You wind up doing something you never imagined. So,
Wow.
Yeah.
So how did the Young Sheldon cut happen?
Well, I had acquired my dad's master recordings, a section of them, and his copyrights. And at the time, I hadn't really started building his legacy brand. I just wanted to preserve the music. These were all previous vinyl releases in the 50s, 60s, that time period. And so I just want them out there. So that's what I did in life, working at record labels. I can release music. So, you know, just did the little things I knew to do, put them out. And through that, just kind of backed into some interest with vintage country music and wound up with a sync rep before those doors kind of opened, and moved to another sync rep later, but just initially just wanting to have the music
Just to
out
get
there in
it
the
out
digital
there.
world.
Keep it alive.
Keep it alive.
That's
and
really cool.
Turned out there was this niche for vintage country.
And so there was actually a couple of pretty big ones. It was the Young Sheldon one, obviously,
Yeah.
and the Michelob Ultra was a huge campaign,
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah, that was totally a huge surprise, and I'll tell you why. That particular song had never ever been released. I had these quarter-inch reel-to-reel master tapes that I had to transfer, and so in that transfer process, there was one song on this one reel I had never heard it before, and it had never been released. It actually had been recorded by Bobby Helms
Okay.
of Jingle Bell Rock.
Yeah, yeah.
And so maybe that's why they decided not to release it. Some other artists had it. And so I said, well, cool. And I put it out. And it was nothing I ever thought would work for sync. And, it just worked out. It fit the story with the storyboard with what they had for the commercial. And but that song had not been heard for 60 years. It went on to tape on a shelf in 1968. And then, in 2022, here it is in, 10, 15 million
That's
plays
amazing. That's
on
really cool.
TV and social media.
I think it's great that you've been able to keep some of that stuff alive
Yeah.
and going in this day, to bring it back to life in a
Well,
sense,
for me personally, we all talk about talent sometimes in music. When you can pull something from another decade that seemingly became irrelevant, and genres change and mixes change and stuff changes, but someone looks at that, talent is kind of timeless sometimes
Yeah.
when something's done and somebody looks at it and says, you know what, that works for what we want to do. And so it's kind of a big nod to his talent and the production, during that time.
Yeah.
So some cool players on that particular recording. Great steel intro from Lloyd Green.
Oh, wow.
So yeah,
Nashville legends.
yeah, and there was so all cool stuff that you're just grateful, that they happen.
And so back in the day, Louisiana Hayride, for those of you who are younger and don't know, it was kind of like the Grand Ole Opry. It happened in Louisiana, and it was a very big deal. I mean, Elvis was a regular on the Louisiana Hayride. Johnny Horton, Jim Reeves, lots of legends. So your dad was rubbing shoulders with Elvis and all those guys.
Yeah, he went to the Hayride in 1951, and that final year Hank Williams was on the Hayride, and they rode the bus a couple times.
So your dad got to hang out with Hank Williams.
Yeah, there were some Hank stories
Wow, I'll bet there was.
that I've found and researched for the book. So through that period, Webb Pierce, Jim Reeves, Patsy Cline.
Wow.
The Hayride was only second to the Opry, but the Hayride, which became known as the Cradle of the Stars, because a lot of guys went there as a launching pad. You could hear it from coast to coast. But the Hayride would kind of let music on that you couldn't get on the. At the time, Opry didn't allow drums. Sorry,
Right.
John.
Right.
And even some electrified instruments. But the Hayride was like, bring it.
A little bit more edgy.
A little bit more edgy. A young James Burton was on in 1954 when my dad's duo was on there, and James Burton was in the Hayride staff band.
Oh, wow.
And that's when Elvis came and met some of those guys, and James Burton wound up being on his
That's
comeback
really
tour in the late 60s and stuff like that. So just so many names when you go trace some of the DNA of path of country music, just so many guys can attribute to Hayride. Don Henley, in an interview, talked about, he lives in that northeast corner of Texas, an hour from Shreveport, talks about getting in his grandfather's truck when he's a kid, listening to the Hayride, so even the influence over into somebody in the Eagles and just a great influence in American music, country music.
That's amazing.
So I've got a copy of your book. I've started reading it. It's great. We've had a conversation. I'm not really a reader. I need an audio version.
So
maybe you could just read it to me sometime.
Should I? Or should I? I plan to do an audio book, but
There you go.
that
But I'd rather just sit here and have you read it to me.
or make
But,
a picture version.
Yeah, if you got pictures. No, but in the book, you explain a lot about your dad and the early days and carrying through. So what inspired you to do that?
Well, that Michelob commercial, actually, that's such a fascinating thing for an artist to have started recording in 1949, and then 70 years later, be heard nationally, with all the other things in between. And so I wanted to button up his career, not just his career, but his life. And you'll read in the book, his life that he lived in country music in those days was quite different than the man I knew as a father. He had a change of direction. He just never seemed satisfied. He did a lot of dumb stuff. And all of that stuff is public in interviews from his peers saying, Johnny Mathis was a wild man. He was crazy, and all. And and I knew the guy that raised 3 sons and traveled around the country and told his story of his faith and things like that. But that's not public,
Right.
So I wanted to put the two together, and all these things that you can research and find that are public. I wanted to also put the private and show how this whole story wrapped up.
So everybody could get to know the real man behind
Country
John,
Johnny
of who he was.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, so it's it's a lot of good feedback about it and the inspiration from it, and kind of it's kind of a story for all of us that we get in our places in life. Sometimes we get off the trail a little bit, and then we realize that titles sometimes start them ain't enough, and sometimes we have those moments in life that we go back to what's really important to us.
Yeah.
And that's what keeps us grounded, keeps us on the path we need to be on.
That's great. So you also started a YouTube channel that helps people with different aspects of the music business, like why you need a bio, or publishing, helping people with publishing,
Yeah.
or getting their songs heard, or what, that kind of stuff, and share your knowledge that you've had, right?
It's kind of my therapy in some ways.
It's kind of your therapy.
Yeah.
But what led you to do that?
Well, I have the same conversations over and over again. A lot of times, independent artists or songwriters or people trying to develop something. We'll go to lunch or we'll have breakfast or coffee, and I get asked the same. What do you think about? What should I do? All of those things, and I thought about it. I said, I just should put these things up in a podcast form and address them in that way. Because if people I meet personally are interested, maybe there's others out there,
Right.
and give a real perspective about it.
I think what's really good about that too is, like, one of them is talking about, like, getting a job. Like a lot of people come to Nashville and they have this big starry-eyed thing, and they can't get a job because it might be, then they won't take me seriously as a musician or a
Yeah.
songwriter or whatever you're here to do. But it's okay to wait tables, and it's okay.
Well-
It's a necessity almost.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not going to come here right away, and be this big star. So, it's okay to do different things in the music business, and
It is.
a little bit of the publishing and a little bit of this.
Well, creative people can sometimes be just almost 100% creative.
Yeah.
And if it's something you want to make a business out of, you kind of have to have the ability to step back from, the creative aspects, because being creative is fun. And I told John earlier, but sometimes being creative is about 20% of it. The other 80% is kind of like a job. And so nothing wrong with working a job, and nothing wrong with treating what you're pursuing in music like a job, and learning to do the back end things, the admin things, the stuff that's not fun. And you have to learn about some of that, in order to give yourself a better chance of being successful.
Great advice. Check out his YouTube channel. What's it? Is it just John Mathis Jr. or is
It
it
may be John Mathis Music.
John Mathis Music? Go to YouTube,
Yeah.
John Mathis Music. Click subscribe, and while you're at it,
Sure.
click subscribe on our channel.
Yeah, yeah.
Very informative. So, John, what you smoking?
I'm smoking an Arturo Fuente Rosado Gran Reserva.
I've not had that cigar yet.
It's,
You make that sound good. I can't
know.
say it like
well, so I love Nicaraguan cigars primarily, but then sometimes I like to switch. This is Dominican, and so I'll get in a Dominican mood. And
Yeah, I'm a big fan of both.
Yeah.
I kind of lean more Dominican than anything, but Nicaragua.
Or are you guys smoking?
Oh,
that. Well, I'm smoking a leaf by Oscar Maduro.
great cigar.
Great cigar. I like it a lot.
I'm smoking an Enclave Broadleaf by A.J. Fernandez. And like I said in a previous episode, I'm a huge fan of just about everything that
AJ
does.
Fernandez is an excellent blender. I haven't smoked AJ Fernandez I did not like.
And
so.
for a $11 stick, this is an amazing smoke.
Yeah.
Very, very good.
Yeah. So, another thing we do on here, stranded on an island.
Stranded on Island sounds really
24
good.
hours, as JR always says.
24 hours, man.
24 hours.
The ship's coming back the next day.
Okay.
You're not going to
Okay.
die.
Yeah, so,
Oh, no, I was wanting like 2 weeks.
but you're stuck for one day, deserted island. You get 3 cigars, 1 bottle, and 1 album.
Bottle can be anything. It can be
Bottle
bourbon.
could
It
be
can be
anything.
water.
See,
it
let me
can
do
be-
some math here. 3 cigars. That ship better come back in 6 hours. All right? I'm going to be swimming. I'm going to go nuts. Well, 3 cigars, Perdomo, 20th anniversary sun grown, the Churchill. That's
Great stick.
my favorite end of the night cigar. Probably there's also a Perdomo 20th anniversary Connecticut, and why not just go Perdomo all the way? There's also the Habano, so I'll just change the wrappers, leave the label the same, and do that. Drink-wise, I like a little carbonated water with some lime in it.
Keep you hydrated and
Yeah,
refreshed.
yeah, or coffee, either one of those. And for music, I mean, I was raised being exposed to Jimmy Rogers.
All right.
And so he's the father of American country music. His music was from the 30s. A lot of his music influenced modern music.
Oh, yeah.
And so I would want to just kind of take a trip back in history and hear some Jimmy Rogers train songs, yodeling songs with that really funky rhythm guitar kind of style. He's got
So just like a Jimmy Rogers greatest hits sort of.
Sure, yeah.
all
He's
right.
just had such a odd way to strum sometimes.
Yeah.
It's
Very cool. Very cool. All right. So John is fluent in Spanish, and he actually turned me on to this place. There's a taco shop not too far from here. It's called La Villa,
yeah, La Villa.
and you can always find John there eating tacos.
Every day at about 11:45.
Are they? So if you had one taco place around, that would be the place.
That would be the place. And so my mother's from Louisiana, so I have that influence. My dad was from Texas, and so I grew up. I was about 14 in Texas. You can't grow up in Texas without any kind of Mexican culture influence because that used to be Mexico. So I brought that with me in my life. It also influenced me about Spanish. Always a desire to learn, but I love a place like La Villa because it's a communal place. It's just a lot of open tables. You can go sit with guys if you want to. It's not like chips and salsa and a waiter coming to you. It's it reminds me of how I grew up in the meat and threes. Every culture has that, where you go to a small town and you walk in and everybody goes there so much every day that they sit at the table together and have conversations.
And it's a market as well.
Yeah, and it's a store as well, market, so and a butcher, so you can get some things like that. But I love that, the total aspect of that culture,
Yes, well,
and tacos.
And thank you for turning me on to that place, man. It is amazing. So
Well,
good.
and you guys both from California?
Yes.
Originally, yeah. So I used to be Mexico as well. So,
Right.
so there's a lot of food influence and music influence and culture influence in a lot of those states. So
And you do mission trips as well.
yeah, I do.
Was that some of the purpose to learn the language?
It always sparked that. My wife and I took one about 14 years ago to Baja, Mexico, and it always keeps replanting that desire. But what really flipped it for me, I was getting into my late 40s, is like it's now or never. And I was passing a Latino church one day, and they had a sign for Spanish lessons. And it was about 7 years ago, and I was like, well, I don't have time, but I'm going to do it. And so I went to a Spanish lesson or two and wound up attending that church, which is 95% Hispanic. And so it became immersion into the language. So, and that's led me to do a lot of community things, a lot of work through that. Took a Guatemala mission trip earlier this year. I was able to bring our son, Alex.
Very cool.
He's almost 14, so impactful for him. I think everybody should, whether it's mission related or, some kind of charity related kind of thing.
Just to get out of the bubble.
Get out of the bubble. We live in a bubble. Get out of the bubble. Go see how the rest of the world lives, and if anything, it just makes you grateful. And gratefulness goes a long way in everything you pursue and do.
Absolutely.
So, which I have to say is about you guys and a lot of guys I meet that's successful in music in particular. There's a thread of gratefulness in their attitude, and I think that is really a big part of making people successful.
I agree.
John's also a keyboard player. He's joined us on a couple of songs that you've probably
Well,
seen on our channel here.
He uses that keyboard player term loosely. I'm like Jack. I'm a John of all trades, master of none.
Well, we really appreciate it, and just thankful for you. I met you here actually.
Yeah.
This place is a mission. That's one of the things about cigars that's always been a misconception with people who don't smoke is it's not like smoking cigarettes where you got to go outside and feed the monkey. I mean, it's very much community. It's very much sitting down and relaxing and spending an hour with people that you enjoy hanging out with and having great conversation. And that's something that we love, and one of the reasons that we're doing this right now. Just meeting great people like John and having conversations.
And after 5 minutes, we find out we know some of the same people.
Exactly. Well, that's Nashville. If you have anything to do with music, you have 15 mutual friends.
Yeah. So it's inevitable we're going to run into each other.
Oh yeah.
It's just made it quicker.
Yep.
Well, thanks guys for inviting me to be a part of your podcast today.
We're honored that you said yes.
Especially before it really blows up and it gets really hard to get on here.
We'll have you back.
Yeah. And there'll be some more music. We'll be playing some music and recording some stuff, and John will be a part of that. And,
So, John, they could find you on Facebook, Instagram.
Yeah, all of that.
YouTube.
JohnMathisJr.com for the website. So
and the book.
and
Buy
get a
the
copy
book.
of the book.
Buy the book.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you again soon.